A key factor in writing clean, semantically rich HTML is choosing the correct element to describe a particular bit of content. So for example, in an earlier lesson, we learned how to create a bulleted list. But in this lesson, we will learn that HTML offers many different list types. And sometimes it's a bit tricky knowing which list type to use to describe your list content. However, by the end of this lesson, you will have a firm grasp of the 3 most common list types. So let's get started. We will begin with a list type that you've already seen in action from an earlier lesson, the unordered list. We choose the unordered list when the ordering of the list items do not matter. This means by changing the order of the list items, we're not changing the meaning of the list as a whole. So a good example of this would be a grocery list. Unordered list, list item, milk, bread, carrots. So if we save and refresh in the browser, we see a bulleted list. And the key point here is that it doesn't matter if carrots came first. That doesn't change the inherent meaning of this grocery list. To clearly illustrate this point, let's look at something different. Let's look at an ordered list. So in the text editor, we'll create a new list. Instead of UL, we'll use OL, which stands for ordered list. It also accepts list item LI elements as children. And we'll create a list of our morning routine. So the first list item is wake up. Then brush teeth. Then shower. Then eat breakfast. So if I save and refresh in the browser, we see that instead of a bulleted list, we receive a numbered list. And this is because the ordering matters. With an ordered list, the ordering is changing the meaning of the list as a whole. So if I'm showing you my morning routine, it matters that these items are in a specific order. So you'll remember with the unordered list, we said that it doesn't matter if carrots was moved to the top. It's still the same grocery list. But with our ordered list, what if I moved eat breakfast to sit before wake up? All of a sudden, this numbered list or this ordered list doesn't make any sense. How can you eat breakfast if you didn't first wake up? So let's go ahead and revert that back to the original order. And this was all just a long-winded way of saying that if the ordering of your items doesn't matter, use an unordered list, UL. And if the ordering does matter, use an OL, ordered list. Now let's talk about the third type of list, the description list. I think the name is self-explanatory, but let's see it in action. Let's give ourselves a goal. Let's imagine that we want to describe a book. So this would include mentioning things like the title, the name of the author, the number of pages. The code for the description list element is simply DL. Now let's begin with the title of this imaginary book. Inside a DL element, we begin with a DT element. This stands for description term. So the first term that we're describing is the title of the book. Directly following the DT element, we add a DD. This is simply the actual description. So the title of the book is an imaginary book title. Let's go ahead and add a colon after title. Next, let's include the author. So we'll create another DT element, author. Then we'll include a DD element. Brad Schiff is the author of this imaginary book. Let's include the number of pages. So we use DT, description term. The term is pages. Actually, number of pages. And the description, we'll say that this book has 500 pages. Now if we save and then view this in our web browser, we can see here's our description list. Let's review the code structure for creating description lists. For each item or thing that we are describing, we create one overall description list. And then within that, we create pairings of terms and descriptions. Now, it's important to point out that a term can have multiple descriptions associated with it. So, for example, if the book had multiple authors, we can simply include another DD element associated with this term, with this DT. So we could say John Doe is the second author of the book. The description list is very versatile. So here we've used it as an example to describe a book, but we could also use it as a glossary of terms. If we were writing an article and we use phrases or terms that aren't commonly known, we would simply include the word in the DT element and then a definition or description of the word in the DD element. That's going to bring this lesson to a close. To review, we can use an unordered list when the ordering doesn't matter. We can use an ordered list when the ordering does matter. And we can use a description list when we're describing something. I'll see you in the next lesson.